Hidden since the day I was born. My whole life we had one rule. Never open the basement door. I thought it was just a weird family thing, until I asked my mom why. The way she reacted, like she'd seen a ghost, told me everything. Something happened down there. Something connected to me. Something they hid since the day I was born. I grew up in a house full of rules, small, ordinary ones like keeping shoes off the couch or rinsing dishes before putting them in the sink. Rules everyone's parents had. But there was one rule that always felt different. Never go into the basement. Not don't go alone. Not don't go when it's dark. Not don't touch anything down there. Just never, ever. My mother enforced it with a kind of quiet fear, like the basement was a living thing she didn't want to provoke. My father enforced it with anger. Sharp, quick, eyes narrowing if I even lingered near the door. And since I was a kid who didn't like getting yelled at, I followed the rule. I didn't question it much. But growing up, I noticed things. Small things. Things you don't understand when you're young but remember when you're older. Like the way the basement door was always locked, even when they claimed no one ever used it. Or how, at night, I sometimes heard faint thuds from below the floorboards. My parents dismissed it as pipes settling. But our house was newer than most in the neighborhood. There shouldn't have been anything settling. Or how my father carried heavy black trash bags out to the curb sometimes at 3 in the morning. And when I'd ask what was inside, he'd give the same answer every time. Junk. Don't worry about it. But the bags weren't light. I know because I once tried to lift one as a kid. I could barely move it. My mother scolded me for that more than she ever did for failing a class or breaking a plate. Ethan, don't touch those, she hissed, as if the bag itself were dangerous. And then there were the dreams. Dreams I used to have almost every night when I was little, dreams of a dim room, the heavy smell of dust and something metallic, a faint humming sound, and a woman crying. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know why she cried. But in the dream, I felt like I was watching something through someone else's eyes. My parents said I had an active imagination. I believed them, for a while. But those memories, those strange fragments, they didn't stay buried. Not really. They just waited for the right moment to resurface. And that moment came during winter break this year, when I came home from university for the first time in months. The house felt different the moment I walked in. Smaller, tighter, as if the walls had absorbed years of stress and were now exhaling it. My mom hugged me too tightly. My dad hovered behind her, his smile forced, his shoulders tense. And the very first thing I noticed once I set my bags down, the basement door locked. Not with the old brass lock I remembered, but with a brand new steel deadbolt. Strange, but not surprising, not really. I put it out of my mind. I wanted to enjoy dinner, catch up, pretend things were normal. But by the second day home, the tension around that door became impossible to ignore. My dad watched it whenever he passed, like he expected something to push through from the other side. My mom jumped whenever the floor creaked near it, and I kept catching her wiping the top of the doorframe with a cloth. Checking for dust? Or checking for something else? On the third day, I finally asked. It happened casually. Too casually to have triggered the reaction it did. We were in the kitchen. My mom was pouring tea, and I was leaning against the counter. The basement door sat just behind her, in full view. Hey, I said. Why did you guys put a new lock on the basement? The mug she was holding slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the floor, hot tea splashing across the tiles. She didn't even react to the burn. She just stared at me, wide-eyed, breath frozen in her throat. Then she whispered, Ethan, don't ask about the basement. I blinked. Why? I'm 21. I think I can handle whatever's down there. No, her voice broke. You can't. What does that even mean? She shook her head violently. We locked it for your safety. My safety from what? Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. From what happened down there. A chill ran down my spine so fast I felt dizzy. What happened? I demanded. But before she could answer, my father walked in. He froze when he saw the shattered mug on the floor, then looked at us both. What's going on? I stared at him. Why is the basement locked? He stiffened instantly, like a spring pulled tight. We've talked about this. No, actually, I said. We never have. Not really. My mom wiped her hands on a towel, trembling. David, he asked. My father looked at her with something almost like warning in his eyes. An unspoken do not say anything. Then he turned back to me. There's nothing down there that concerns you. Mom said it's for my safety, I replied. His jaw clenched. Your mother worries too much. but she shook her head desperately. He has a right to know. No, my father snapped. He doesn't. The room went silent. Not peaceful silence, heavy silence. Silence that holds back the weight of things never spoken aloud. Something in me cracked then. I'd grown up tiptoeing around that basement door. I'd grown up accepting the fear in my mother's eyes and the anger in my father's. Not anymore. Tell me the truth, I said. What are you hiding? Neither of them answered. Not a word. And that silence, that refusal, became the spark that ignited everything else. That night I couldn't sleep. My room felt too quiet, too far from the rest of the house. Every sound made me jump. At 1:37 a.m., a faint thud echoed through the floor, directly beneath me. My chest tightened. I got up, opened my door, and stepped into the hallway. The house was dark except for the faintest glow from the nightlight in the living room. I walked quietly toward the basement door. The steel lock reflected the dim light. Something in me, instinct, memory, fear, I couldn't name it, pulled me closer. I placed my ear against the door. For a moment, nothing, just silence. Then, a soft, rhythmic sound, like someone breathing on the other side. My blood turned cold. I backed away so fast I nearly stumbled. My parents were hiding something. Something alive, something breathing, something connected to me. When I finally returned to my room, one thought consumed me. I need to get inside that basement. And the next day I decided exactly how I would do it. I didn't confront my parents the next morning. I wanted to, it burned in me like a fever. But something told me they weren't going to tell me anything. Not willingly, not honestly, not after all these years of silence. So instead I watched them. I watched my father pretend to read the newspaper, turning the same page twice. I watched my mother follow him around the house nervously, as if afraid he might slip and reveal something. I watched the little glances they exchanged whenever I walked past the basement door. Glances full of fear, guilt, and something else that unsettled me completely. Anticipation. As though they expected something to happen soon. As though they were waiting for something to wake up. That alone made me more determined. One way or another I would get inside that basement. The first thing I needed was a key. My father kept all the important keys in a small drawer in his desk. One he believed I never went near. He was wrong. Growing up with suspicious parents turns you into a suspicious child. That afternoon, while both of them were outside clearing snow from the driveway, I quietly slipped into his office and opened the drawer. Rows of keys lay inside. Car keys, old storage keys, garage keys, and then 2 small silver keys on a ring newer than the rest. The basement keys. I could tell by the shape. I could tell by the weight. I closed my fingers around them. For a moment I hesitated. What if this wasn't just about curiosity? What if the basement held something I couldn't unsee? Something that would rewrite my life the way the adoption papers rewrote Noah's in the Day 2 story? But the moment I heard the front door open, instinct kicked in. I closed the drawer gently, slipped the keys into my pocket, and stepped out of the room as casually as I could. My mother was shaking the snow off her boots. My father stomped inside behind her, muttering about the weather. Neither of them noticed anything. Not yet. But when dinner came, I barely ate. My brain was racing too fast. My father kept eyeing me, suspicion flickering across his face. He always knew when I was hiding something. I wasn't sure if that was parental instinct, or because he had practiced hiding things himself. "Everything okay, Ethan?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." He nodded, but his eyes stayed on me a moment too long. Later that night, when the house had settled and my parents' bedroom door closed, I lay in bed with the basement keys resting in my hand beneath the blanket. I just needed the courage, the right moment, and the truth, whatever it was. 2:14 a.m., I heard it again. A thud, soft but unmistakable, directly beneath my floor. My breath caught. Adrenaline shot through my veins. This was it. I slipped out of bed, careful not to make a sound, and crept into the hallway. My heart hammered so loudly I was surprised it didn't wake them. When I reached the basement door, I paused. The air around it felt colder somehow, heavier, like standing in front of a storm. I inserted the key slowly, turned it. The lock clicked with a sound that felt louder than thunder in the quiet house. I pulled the deadbolt, and the door groaned as it opened. A cold draft washed over me, carrying with it a smell I couldn't immediately place. Not mold, not dust, something metallic, something sharp, something that made goosebumps rise along my arms. I flicked on the hallway light. The first few steps of the staircase creaked under my weight. The light barely reached halfway down, leaving the rest swallowed in shadow. My hand trembled as I pulled the basement chain cord, and a single dim bulb flickered to life, casting long, eerie shadows across the concrete floor. The basement looked ordinary at first glance. Old boxes, a stack of broken chairs, a rusted bike frame, a water heater in the corner. But there was something off. A set of old children's toys in a plastic bin. A cracked mirror leaning against the wall. A crib covered in dust. I felt something twist in my stomach. I stepped closer. The blanket inside the crib was faded yellow, patterned with tiny bears. On the wooden railing, faint scratches marked the wood, small grooves, like someone had been clawing or gripping hard. I reached out and touched the scratches. The wood felt cold. Then, out of the corner of my eye, something caught my attention. Something odd in the wall behind the crib. A seam. Not a crack, a seam. Straight. Deliberate. Like a panel. I moved the crib aside. A trail of dust swirled up. Behind it, I found a small indentation in the wall, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. I pushed. The panel clicked and slid open by an inch. My heart slammed into my ribs. Inside was a hidden room. My throat tightened as I pulled the panel wider. The air that drifted out was freezing, far colder than the rest of the basement. With the light from the bulb barely reaching, the space beyond was more shadows than shapes. But as my eyes adjusted, things came into view. A battered filing cabinet. A set of shelves with old binders. Dark stains on the floor. Stains that made my chest tighten. A metal ring bolted into the concrete, like something meant to secure something. My breath turned shallow. This wasn't storage. This wasn't a forgotten room. This was a place where something happened. Something bad. I stepped inside slowly, every part of me screaming to turn back. But I couldn't, not after 21 years of secrets. The filing cabinet drawer squeaked as I pulled it open. Inside were folders, each yellowed with age. My name was written on several of them. Therapist notes, medical reports, behavioral assessments. Each listed my name. Each described things I didn't remember. Infant displays unusual distress response. Reacts strongly to basement environment. Frequent nightmares referencing a woman crying. Possible traumatic exposure during developmental stage. I felt like the floor dropped beneath me. All those dreams, all those strange memories. I had seen something. My heart pounded as I reached for the last folder in the drawer. One thicker than the others. Inside were photographs. The first was of the basement as it was now. The second was taken years earlier, showing the same hidden room, but with a woman sitting on the floor holding a baby. Her face was blurred, like the camera shook. The baby was me. The third photo. I froze. My skin turned ice cold. The third showed the basement door from the inside. Heavy locks, chains, and on the door, written in black marker, smudged and frantic. Don't let him come down here, don't let him remember, please. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. A woman's handwriting. I recognized it instantly, though I had never seen it before. It was my biological mother's. My vision blurred. My mind spun. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to scream or collapse. All these years, I thought the basement was off-limits because my parents were paranoid. But now I knew. It was off-limits because of me. Because of what I saw as a baby. Because of what happened down here. And the biggest question wasn't what happened. It was, why did they hide this from me? And what happened to the woman in that photo? Behind me, a floorboard creaked. Softly, deliberately, someone else was in the basement. I spun around and saw a silhouette standing at the stairs. The silhouette at the top of the stairs was unmistakably my father's. For a long, terrifying second, neither of us moved. The dim basement light cast his figure in shadow, but I could still see the tension in his shoulders, the rigid line of his jaw, the tight grip of his hand on the railing. He'd caught me, and from the look on his face, this wasn't just anger. This was fear. Deep, marrow-deep fear. Ethan, he said finally, his voice low, trembling. Not with age, but with something heavier. Step away from that room. My heart thudded painfully. My mind raced. My fingers tightened around the file in my hand. The one with my mother's writing, the hidden photos, the truth they buried. Why? I asked. My voice cracked. What is this place? Step away. I'm done stepping away, I snapped. I'm done pretending. I'm done being kept in the dark. Just tell me what happened. Tell me the truth. My father took one step down the stairs, and the weak bulb flickered overhead. His face became clearer now. Haunted, gaunt, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he murmured. We hoped you'd never remember. Remember what? I demanded. But before he could answer, another voice came from behind him. David, my mother. She appeared at the top of the stairs, her robe clutched tightly around her shoulders, her hair messy from sleep. When she saw me, saw the open panel, the hidden room, the files in my hand, her breath left her like she'd been punched. Oh God, she whispered. Ethan, baby, no. I swallowed hard. Just tell me, both of you. I deserve that much. My father's hand trembled as he reached for the railing again. He looked older than I had ever seen him, a man exhausted by a secret he'd carried for too long. You were never meant to be down there, he said slowly. We locked it to protect you. Protect me from what? I pressed. He hesitated, then finally stepped off the last stair, entering the basement. Protect you, he said softly. From what happened to your mother? My chest tightened. My mother? I thought she died before I was born. My father shook his head. No, she didn't die before you were born. She died because of your birth. The words hit like a punch. My mother sank down to the steps, covering her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. But that's not the full truth, he added quietly. There's more. So much more. I clutched the file in my hand. Then tell me. He looked at me with eyes filled with something I'd never seen from him before. Fear. Fear of the truth. Fear of me. And fear of a past he tried desperately to bury. He exhaled shakily. Your biological mother, Evelyn. She was unstable, he began. After you were born, her mental state deteriorated. She became paranoid. She said strange things, heard things, saw things that weren't there. That's not what they say. I held up the therapist's notes. They say I reacted strongly, that I had distress. Not her. His jaw clenched. Those reports were about you because she involved you in her delusions. She brought you into this basement and had episodes, violent ones. She refused to let us take you. She said the world upstairs wasn't safe for you. And she scratched these walls, Ethan. She left those marks. I looked at the scratches on the crib again. Small, jagged, desperate. But that doesn't explain why the basement is locked, I said. Or why you hid the photos. I was trying to protect you, he repeated. Where is she? I demanded. What happened that night? What did you do? He lowered his eyes. She attacked your mother. My mother let out a broken sob. She wasn't herself. She swung a broken bottle. She said we were stealing you. She said you weren't safe with us. She tried to grab you. I felt a stone form in my throat. A memory flickered. Something vague, like a dream. A woman's scream, cold air, the smell of dust, a hand reaching for me. David pulled me away, my mother whispered. And she fell. She hit her head. I swallowed, hard, and died. My father nodded slowly. Is that the truth? I asked. My voice cracked, raw with disbelief. Because nothing about her handwriting on that door looks like she was violent. It looks like she was terrified. Terrified for me. My father opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. I saw the photo, I said. She was sitting calmly with me. She didn't look unhinged. She looked sad. My father looked physically pained. People can look calm before they do terrible things. Or before terrible things are done to them, I replied. He froze. And that told me everything I needed to know. The room felt colder, thicker, like the shadows grew a little longer. My mother finally spoke, her voice a whisper. Ethan, there are things you don't understand. Then help me understand, pleaded. Why are there chains on the door? Why did you have to lock it from the outside? Why did you store her things down here? Why did you lie to me? Why did you pretend she never existed? My mother's eyes flooded with tears. Because we were afraid of what you remembered. My breath caught. What do you mean? I whispered. You're not supposed to remember, she said shakily. You were too young. But you saw it. You saw everything. A chill rippled through me. The dreams. The crying woman. The room. The darkness. The faint humming. The smell of metal. Images flashed brief, sharp, like lightning. A woman's hands shaking. A shadow moving behind her. A scream cut too short. Red on the floor. My mother, my adoptive mother, crying, kneeling. My father yelling. A baby me, crying in a crib nearby. Hands lifting me. A door slamming. A lock closing. Darkness. Silence. I staggered back. My mother reached for me. "Ethan, please." "No," I whispered, stepping away. "No, you didn't save me. You hid the truth. You locked it in this room and hoped I'd never find it." My father's face twisted with something between guilt and anger. "We did what we had to. Did you?" I asked softly. "Or did you do what you wanted to?" Before he could answer, the light above us flickered violently, buzzed, then dimmed. A cold wind brushed the back of my neck. I turned instinctively toward the hidden room. The air inside it felt wrong. Not just cold. Empty. Hollow. And then, a soft sound echoed from the darkest corner. A sound I hadn't heard in years. A sound from my dreams. A woman crying. My father's face went pale. "Ethan, get out of that room. Now." My mother covered her mouth, eyes wide with terror. "Not again. Please, not again." I stared into the darkness, heart pounding, breath sharp and shallow. The crying grew louder, closer, real. For 21 years, they hid the truth of what happened the night she died. But now I wasn't sure she ever really left. And as the crying shifted into whispers, I realized something even worse. She wasn't calling for them. She was calling for me.